I mean, what an embarrassing loss for Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day, even when things like this happen. Army upsetting Kansas State 24-21 on Fort Riley Day in Manhattan, and had this weird feeling that, was it going to happen? Could it possibly happen? And yes, it did. You know, I had my score prediction coming up here, and leave some comments before. We're going to answer all these comments. If you have a question, start it with the little Q so I can see it easier in the comments. We'll answer all those questions on the mailbag. But my score prediction, I thought this was going to be, Chris Klieman finally having enough and saying, hey, look, we're going to make a statement here. The game against North Dakota was just too close to call, and I think that you need to make a stand-up play and make a statement. That was the complete opposite, folks. That was the complete opposite that happened in this game. I think we just found out that that's just what this identity of this team is. You want to call it soft, you want to call it undisciplined, unprepared. I think there's a lot of adjectives you could use here. None of them are positive. I think there's like maybe a few small positives that you can take from this game, and we're going to address them. But this is pointing out a lot of things that went wrong for Kansas State in this game, no doubt. I think Avery Johnson played a great game, with the exception of his receivers just couldn't catch the football. I mean, almost every single one of Avery Johnson's passes, with the exception of maybe like two, were absolute dimes. But there were so many drops on this team that it doesn't look like that when it comes to the box score. I think that you got some nice special teams. 90% was good special teams, but a major special teams blunder to really put you in the blender to have you lose this football game. Couldn't get Avery Johnson back on the field, and when you did, there just wasn't enough time to make anything happen. 24-21 final in this one. The time of possession in the second half alone was absolutely insane. Just the time of possession, period. 40 minutes and 44 seconds for Army compared to only 19 minutes and 16 seconds. I think that's like the biggest issue right here. They must have watched the Dublin tapes. I'm sure they did. Obviously, they're getting ready for this game, but they probably knew that they could get to this defense if they gassed them out, because it's exactly what Iowa State did in week 0 when Hansen ran for those 78 yards compared to 0 yards for Kansas State in the fourth quarter because they only had 8 offensive plays. That defense was completely gassed out. That was the entire second half for Kansas State in this one. Avery Johnson, only 15 for 25, 172 yards, touchdown. He finally throws a pick, that last pick at the end of the game, and that's actually really just incredible interception by the secondary of Army. Army's secondary played very good in the second half. They did. I thought the safeties played some really good times. I thought they looked really well. I mean, that play to, I believe it was Tibbs that was fumbled, that Kansas State caught a break on. That safety made a perfect play to make happen. But no, by no stretch of the imagination should Kansas State have lost this football game. There was so many opportunities for Kansas State to make the right play, and they did not. They just didn't. And if you've listened to my show over the last couple of weeks, especially I believe it was on Wednesday or Thursday show, I put an entire show about talking about Avery Johnson needs to run the football more. We're not utilizing Avery Johnson enough. 3 carries, 15 yards for Avery Johnson. We only had 75 total rushing yards against Army. We were outdone. Kansas State was outdone in total yards, 332 to 247. Army put down 237 rushing yards on a Kansas State defense that, heading into this season, was supposed to be a Big 12 contender. That is down the drain now, folks. And now, yes, you can win the Big 12. I mean, you can still go and make that happen. This game doesn't affect that. I get that. The season is not technically over. But are you going in the next week on a short week on the road to Arizona right now and thinking, yeah, we can win that game? In the offseason, I thought that was an easy green W. Are you thinking in 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, after having a bye, hopefully that off week is like a blessing in disguise, but are you thinking that you can take down UCF? They're at least putting points on the board. How about Baylor and Waco after what they just did to a ranked SMU team today? A lot of really crazy things that need to be done. I think there needs to be some drastic changes. I already see them in the comments as well about this. There's a lot of things that you really need to think about if you're Kansas State. I don't think anything fixes it in the middle of the season, but I think you have to maybe think long term if this season starts going down the drain like it is right now. You almost lose to North Dakota last week. This should have been a perfect time to say, that's not the team we are. That's not the team Kansas State is. And we're going to go out there in Manhattan and we're going to prove against a team that just lost to an FCS school last week and prove that we can really run it all over the yard on them. This should have been a statement win for Kansas State. And instead, they let them stick around, just like they let North Dakota stick around. But at this time, they didn't get bailed out by Avery Johnson on the final drive. This is a huge point in the face at the coaching staff for Kansas State. And I think it goes from top to bottom, from head coach, coordinators, special teams, you name it. There is a lot of issues with this team right now. And maybe they're not as talented as we thought they were either. Maybe that is a talent issue, talent, discipline issue, all of that. Maybe this team just isn't as good as we thought they were this offseason. Maybe that's just the case. Hate to say it, but after watching them these last 3 games, I don't feel confident about this team at all. This team doesn't look anything remotely close to what they did in 2022. And this team doesn't look remotely like they were over the last couple of years. I think we're at the point now to think about the future of Avery Johnson and the rest of this team. Like if we make a bowl game, that's where we're at right now. 8-4 might turn into the ceiling, folks. Like my overall prediction heading into the season was 10-2. Do you really think we're winning out? Because we already have 2 losses. Did you think we're going to be 1-2 heading into Arizona? Not me. Now we're talking about the fact that Avery Johnson might decide to hit that 10-day transfer window in January. Maybe he might follow suit, maybe follow Will Howard and determine where they're going to go. And for the record, we don't know what we have in quarterback 2 because we haven't had a chance to see it with the 2 games that we were supposed to have a chance to see it in North Dakota in Army. I see your questions. We're going to get to them. Let's get to a break real quick, and then we'll answer questions in this second segment and start talking a little more right here on Locked On Kansas State. Probably should hit the right buttons as well. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Upside. If you're still paying full price for gas, stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up on the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash. You can use the limited time promo code football, get 25 cents extra off per gallon. It works. It's a great thing you can do, and you can save up to $300 a year just for buying gas, something you're already doing. Maybe you're going from the trip home from Manhattan, and you can find a way to get a little more excited, maybe feel a little better because you're saving a couple extra bucks. Promo code football, limited time, 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. You can do that with the Upside app. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. I'm not going to lie to you. I am really excited that we have 80 people in here listening because I thought it was going to be a lot lower. I thought people were going to say, I'm done with this season. I'm completely over it. 1-2. We should beat this team by 50. My prediction was 41-7, and you wind up losing this football game by 3 points. Now, every single one of Kansas State's games have been decided by 3 points or more, but overall, this is just not a good football team. It's just not. I don't think they're nowhere near where they need to be to compete for the Big 12. I mean, I tried to fight Drake Toll over on Locked On Big 12 this week to say that they don't belong at the bottom of the Big 12 power rankings that he puts out. They were 15 out of 16. Only UCF is behind them. I mean, after losing to Army, I mean, with the exception maybe Oklahoma State after what they just did to Oregon. I mean, how can you think that they're a good football team right now? I mean, from the beginning, right? In the first play of the game, there was an excellent start in the kick return. I thought the kick return game was excellent with the exception of that squib kick, onside kick that they just weren't ready for. But, I mean, Bryce Nornberg was fantastic. I mean, the best thing that came out of this week alone, heading up to this week, the North Dakota the blunder. But the best thing that came out of this week was Chris Kleiman saying that, although it's easy to get on a guy like Nuremberg, he's not going to give up on him. That was his best move that he could have possibly done, because it proved that he was actually he's a great special teamer. He's a great returner, and I'm excited to see his growth. Hopefully it's with Kansas State in the future. But overall, I mean, everything else, you still wound up punting the football. Or I think you had a field goal on the opening drive. That's it. After getting into the other player's position, the other team's territory on a great kick return, you couldn't get any push. This interior offensive line still cannot get any push 3 weeks into this. And it's just it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing knowing that you're putting that out. A program that was with Connor Riley last year as the offensive line coach, now at the Dallas Cowboys, is known to have these guys that push people around. I mean, we're talking about Cooper Beebe, a guy who is the starting offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys, being an alumni for this. And now you go to this offensive line, and it's just not there. The run struggled the entire time, and you didn't even get a chance to give it to Avery Johnson enough. I mean, Devon Rice only had 6 carries for 28 yards. Joe Jackson, 7 carries, 30 yards. I don't even know if Dylan Edwards fixes this problem with the rushing game. When you only attempt 18 rushing attempts against an Army team that you should be excelling against, you have to go away from it to only be on the pass because your offensive line can't make a push against a service academy. That's a real big issue in my mind. I mean, hey, at least the field goal's good. At least Rodriguez can kick it. I mean, that's something that you don't have to really worry about this year. I wish it would be you score more touchdowns, but at least you got that going for you, Kansas State. At least you got a couple. You're okay with getting some field goals, and that's something that was a concern heading into the season because you had to bring in Rodriguez late in the portal because of injuries to some of your other players, other kickers on the team. Let's talk stats real quick before we get the questions, just to finish it up on the receiving side. 15 receptions for a total of 172 yards. Again, not many yards against this Army team. It's crazy. 6 targets for Tibbs. He had 5 receptions for 61 yards and a beautiful touchdown. I mean, that touchdown came at the perfect time too. It was like a ball don't lie kind of situation after the Bradley touchdown reception that was considered a fumble, even though he was in the end zone. Tibbs made sure that there was no denying it. Made sure that the refs couldn't dictate that portion of that possession, and made sure that Tibbs had the touchdown. So shout out to Jerome Tibbs. He was just he was fantastic when he got the ball. 5 receptions on his 6 targets. Jace Brown only had 29 yards on 3 receptions. Bradley only had 2 for 31. Again, that should have had more with that big touchdown. And then that was really much it. Oakley only had 1. Moyes had 1. Lofton had 1. Jackson had 1. And that's it. Joe Jackson had 4 targets and only 1 reception. He dropped a couple. On the second play of the game, he got a drop as well. It just was an embarrassing game for Kansas State, in my opinion. We're going to spend the rest of this episode answering some questions and some comments, and we're going to let this episode dictate what the listeners are viewing in. So I think it should be a very interesting rest of the conversation. We're going to start right off the bat here. Robbie Schlitz says this coaching staff needs to be fired. A lot of talent and no coaching. I have been trying my hardest to be like, believe in the Matt Wells experience, trying to push off the Texas Tech people coming in with their receipts. Well, cash in your receipts. Cause I think you're finally right. I'm ready to take my L and say I was wrong about Matt Wells. He's not being aggressive enough. He has one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in college football, and we're seeing him run the ball 3 times. That's it. That's what we're doing. I just don't understand that one. I don't understand that. I don't think whether you want to point it directly at Matt Wells or maybe it's an even higher up at Chris Kleiman level, but the fact that we're not being aggressive enough on offense, that's my first point. The defense isn't helping y'all either. I mean, the defense being gassed doesn't help the situation. That can't be an excuse, though. If we hear Chris Kleiman come out on the press conference and say, well, I have my defense coordinator Kleinerman's back because, defense was just gassed. That's just how it is. Army's a good football team. That can't be your excuse. You're building a Big 12 championship caliber team with an all Big 12, all American linebacker leading your charge. Yeah, you do have to replace your secondary, which the secondary is not looking very good whatsoever after we're trying to replace Parrish and Siegel and all those people. But you can't say their gas being the excuse. It just can't happen. It can't happen. If you did it in week 0 and then you had blunders 2 weeks in a row from North Dakota and now Army, you just can't happen. And just to keep on here, I'm going down the line here. It looks like Robbie brought him in here. He said, first question here, who needs to be fired first? OC, head coach, or DC? This is where I'm going to stand on this right now. And this will probably be my stance the entire season. I'll be completely honest with you. One, I'm not going to shy away from this question. If I had to pick, if I had to be spot right now, I would say the OC needs to go. I'd say Matt Wells needs to go. If I had to pick at this very moment, folks. But I don't think, at least from the head coaching standpoint, if you're one of those believers that are listening today that think that Chris Klieman needs to go, if you are one of those, because there is a group that are in my comment section that are everydayers that believe that this is not the right path that Kansas State needs to take. So I'm going to be pointing and talking to you for this conversation point right now. I don't think there is any improvement from now until the end of the season to move on from a head coach. There is nothing better at this moment in time that is going to improve that situation. The grass isn't always greener when it comes to firing a coach in the middle of the season. Now, I do think this, if you are well aware, if it gets so bad, like let's say we go 1-5 or 1-6, or you just know it's the bowl games are over and you know it's time to move on, then you don't wait till the end of the season. Not in this new world of NIL and transfer portal, especially when the portal's only 10 days long in January now, especially when recruiting battles are so important. You don't wait. You have to make sure you get your new guys as fast as possible, try and save as many relationships as possible. But moving on at this very moment is not the answer. So I'm not going to shy away from your question, Robbie, because that's just who I am. I would say OC, if I had to make an answer right now, if I had to make a change right now, if I had to pick one, I think Matt Wells needs to go. He's not being aggressive enough with Avery Johnson. He's not being aggressive enough with this running game. This offensive line is not impressive. It's just not working, period. But Kleinerman's not far behind him because that defense is really just not struggling. It's really struggling. And you could even use special teams as a conversation. Special teams has not been great, especially over the last couple weeks. I think they improved this week, though. You can give them like 2 thumbs up and 1 thumbs down because you had the great kick returns from Nuremberg. But that onside kick, that was a dagger. That could have been ultimately the reason they lost this football game, for sure. I really do think that's the case. You can't let Army put up 70 rushes. I mean, you knew it was coming, and they still ran all over you. And this is with a backup quarterback to Army. Their quarterback, Coleman, didn't play. This is a quarterback that had, I think, 2 passes before today and comes in and beats a Power 4 team in their own home. Kansas State's never beaten Army, and that streak continues on Fort Riley Day. Always seems when they have one of these days that Kansas State kind of falls through. So when I found out it was Fort Riley Day and we started, digging into more of the research from Army, and they lose to an FCS opponent last week, and they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and then one of their players becomes a hero, saves somebody from a car fire. Like, they had a lot to play for this week. And they came out firing. Kansas State looked timid, and that offensive line looked timid. And they were getting blown over, although they were playing Service Academy line that is a lot smaller in stature. It always has been for years, because they have different fitness standards. And they really just they screwed the pooch on this one. Looks like it seems to be the growing feeling here. AJ Vanning says Matt Wells needs to go. Yep. So that's something interesting here. I mean, I just don't know if you're going to make a change, if you could make a change at coordinator, if you had somebody else on staff, because you're not going to hire a coordinator in the middle of the season. It's going to be a promote from within to be an interim, and then you're going to go with it. So if Matt Wells goes, who is your interim offensive coordinator? Do you bring up Brian LePeck? Is he your guy? I mean, the offensive line is struggling. So what do you do there? And he's just got that promotion to offensive line. Is he actually ready for an offensive coordinator gig? So, I mean, I just don't understand what exactly you would go for. I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm not sugarcoating this anymore, folks. But I will say that I just don't think it's the right move in the middle of the season, especially when you're 1-2, when technically we could be just completely overreacting. You and me and everybody in the comments here being upset about this game. We could be overreacting. I think have seen the true identity of Kansas State this year, but there is statistically a chance to still salvage your season. So take that for what you will, right? All right, let's continue on to these conversations. There's a lot more questions in here. I'm going to get to them. We're not going to go away. We're going to continue and answer all these questions in here. However long you guys want to stay in, we will. Let's get to our final break now so we can finish that up, and then we will continue on there right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, if you are down right now, well, if you're an NFL fan, that starts tomorrow. You get a full slate of 7 hours of red zone football, not commercial free, right? You get to only have that, no commercials. I'm excited for NFL football tomorrow. I really am. And with the NFL season here, FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And with that $5, if that $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Usually, this is only like 150, 200. This is $300 in bonus bets. This is the highest I've ever seen it since reading this and being a part of the network. So it's the perfect time to take advantage of this. If you are using FanDuel, I love FanDuel, the interface, the app. It's one of my favorite ones to utilize. And also because you can bet on those player props, those live bets. You can build the same game parlays. SGPs are so dang fun. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place that first $5 bet. Army taking it to Kansas State 24-21, an embarrassing loss by Kansas State. I mean, can you say it any worse than that? Like, let's drop them right now in the comments. Drop your adjective, your 1 to 2 word adjective of what you are feeling about this loss right now. Mine's embarrassing. That's even what I put on the thumbnail in here. Drop in the comments, what is your adjective for this 24-21 loss? Because it's a tough one. Yeah, I get it. Gary says, how do we go this far downhill and maybe a little less talent than the 22 champ year? These climbing losses happen every year, tired and ready for a new coach. So it seems like that's where the narrative is going today on this comment section. Look, I don't blame you guys. I don't blame you for this. I just don't know where you go, right? I just don't know if you decide if you make this move now, like who do you move up? If you think it's the coordinators and the head coach, if it's all the problem, that means you need a regime change. That can't happen in the middle of the season unless you are absolutely ready to punt it. And then know that if you are going to punt it, that basically everybody on your roster is going to enter the portal. So something to keep in mind on that one, right? So there's a lot of things in this new world of NIL and portal where you have to make these, these decisions, these business decisions. Is it worth keeping these guys around for a certain amount of time to make sure it happens, right? Because that's good. Hey, keep chopping. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That makes me feel a little better right here. At least K-State didn't lose by 70 like Oklahoma State did today. I was kind of making jokes about the game. I kind of feel bad that I did because it was before the Kansas State game. I was saying that Mike Gundy might need to be left out in the tarmac like they did to Herm Edwards in Arizona State after that game because they lost by so much. But now I'm starting to think a little differently about that jinx. I was even saying what's up to people in a Locked On Baylor's live chat, and I'm kind of eating my own words on that one because I was looking ahead to the Baylor game. I was thinking, yeah, we'll take care of Army. It'll be a statement win, 41-7. And then, Arizona, hopefully we can take care of them. UCF, I think, is going to be at the bottom of the barrel in the Big 12. Nor did I think anywhere into this conversation that would be thinking of Kansas State being there at all. Not after the Dublin game, I didn't. I had my doubts against North Dakota. You could make that argument that it was a Dublin hangover, right? But this one, you can't make it anymore. And you still have to go and do the flip side thing, with the international games. Like, we shouldn't play international games. That just completely ruined our season. I don't know if you can blame that. I don't think you can, because look what Iowa State is doing. And I brought this up last week, and I hate to do that over again, but they beat us by 3 points. That was a game that, again, could have been a coin flip, should have won. Every single one of these games, Kansas State should have won by more than they did, or won, period. The North Dakota game, we should have won by a lot. But Iowa State won all 3 of their games and beat Iowa in the Cyhawk game today. An excellent game. Their offense wasn't great. Maybe that's their hangover. But I don't think they're pointing at Dublin and saying, yeah, that's the reason our offense was a little low against Iowa in this one. When they played their FCS opponent, their quarterbacks were breaking records because their coach believes in their quarterback and lets him do his things, unlike our coaching staff that is letting Avery be timid. You know, I saw some comments as well. I don't know if they were in ours or over on Locked On K-State on Twitter, but a couple people were addressing saying that they think Avery Johnson's running at half speed, that he's not letting the plays develop himself. I didn't see that. What I see is just the opportunities not given to him. I would like for him to be able to have more rollouts, more play action, something that we've seen in the past that Matt Wells has excelled with when he was the head coach at Utah State, when he had Jordan Love. Like, this Avery Johnson's like the perfect quarterback to have for him. Like, it just seemed like a perfect fit, but it's not working because he's not utilizing Avery Johnson in the right way. We heard this entire offseason that Matt Wells and Avery Johnson have this great relationship. They're in the same room together. They're always talking about situations. Is that confidence and trust really there? Because if it is, then why is Avery Johnson only running the ball 3 times a game? If it is, why is Avery Johnson not getting these passes out, not being able to roll out in the pocket and utilize his athletic skills the way that we are supposed to see a dual threat quarterback in Avery Johnson do it? Maybe there is a bigger issue between Avery Johnson and the offensive play calling and coordination with Matt Wells. Maybe there's a couple layers that we're not digging into and need to start. I hope the media asks some tough questions at the presser. I hope they do, because that definitely needs to happen. Avery Johnson ran the ball 4 times. What the heck? Trevor puts that in there. I don't know if I can put up the HE hockey stick word on here. I don't know that, so I'm going to put that up there. Although I can say that, but just don't know if I can put that comment up there. So shout you out for that one. John Frederick, keep chopping. I don't see 2 more wins this season. Hey, look, I put this on our socials last week, and it had a really good, unfortunately, really good interaction. The last 6 games of the season, 6 of the last 7 games of the season, that's a tough stretch. That's a very tough stretch when you go to Baylor and then Tech, TCU, Kansas, Oklahoma State, even though they just lost by 70, it's still on the road, and then Utah. And then you finish the season against Colorado, which, I mean, they're playing 3 different quarterbacks. Who knows what kind of team Colorado is going to be this 12th game of the season? They could be a 5-6 team looking for their 6th bowl win. And that's a dangerous team. That's a dangerous team. Think of a Colorado team in week 12 trying to get their 6th win to go to bowl season with Deion Sanders. That's tough. That's tough. Yeah, 3 rushes for Avery Johnson. Some people don't think we can even make a bowl game. Hey, I mean, it would continue on with the Dublin losing streak, right? That historical trend. Every single team that has played in Dublin that has lost since 2022, Nebraska, Navy, and Florida State, have gone 4-8, 5-7, and 2-10 respectively. So none of them had made a bowl game since 2022. Wells' offense is pathetic. They are a finesse and can't run the ball consistently. Hey, I don't disagree. They have not run the ball consistently this entire time. And I just don't think it's a way that you can point at this team and say, oh, it's just because Dylan Edwards isn't there. The broadcast on ESPN, I listened to it for a little bit before I turned it and muted it. They were talking about how they talked about Devon Rice in the beginning of the game and how he's got some skill and some speed. And they kind of started comparing him to Dylan Edwards, but they were very quick to say, and this is something that the coaching staff has said, I've heard it in pressers, that he's not Dylan Edwards. And the coaching staff wants to make sure that he's not Dylan Edwards. They're putting a lot of stock in Dylan. And so far, we haven't got to see him. And believe me, I know his talent's there. We saw it in the Rape Bowl and Rutgers, what he can do when he gets the rock. But that is the same kind of offense you need to have with or without him. Do you remember that bowl game when we thought Matt Wells was leading the charge, calling those plays, those nice jet sweeps from Dylan Edwards, those nice jet sweeps that involved Jace Brown? Avery Johnson had a nice comeback win against Rutgers to get the job done. The momentum started there. We had an entire offseason of great momentum, and then it just fell off after Dublin. And I mean, honestly, I don't think the momentum really left after Dublin. I think, honestly, I that loss never really impacted me. Now it means a lot more because you have 2 losses before the middle of September. But the North Dakota and the Army game have truly been a big thing. Keep dropping your questions here. I'm looking through. If I see the cues, I'm hitting it. This is D Wade says Texas Tech and Iowa State are going to be in the Big 12 chip, maybe Utah. Iowa State looked good against Iowa. I watched that Cyhawk game. Texas Tech, have they played anybody yet? They're playing kind of cupcakes, right? So have they really played anybody yet? I think they played Kent State today, right? That's like the closest to being a FCS school while being FBS. And Utah played UCLA, which take that for what you will. But I don't disagree with Iowa State right now. They play pretty good. And that's what I thought would be a good thing for Kansas State. They could continue to win and maybe only have an Iowa State loss on their record, maybe one more like a Utah or a Baylor or something like that. Being 7-2 in the conference and then going 10-2 would still have a pretty decent resume because those teams you lost to would have a good resume. That doesn't really come into play now. There is no chance whatsoever that Kansas State is an at-large bid. If they win out for the rest of the season, if lightning strikes in a bottle for 9 more times this year and they win out and they go 10-2, they will not be an at-large bid. This loss to Army kills that. Absolutely kills that. Their only chance to make the college football playoffs this year, the only chance is if they most likely win out, maybe get 1 loss on their resume, because 7-2 did make it to the Big 12 championship last year. You got to get some tiebreakers, right? And win in Arlington. You can't just make it there now. You got to win. And I'm not saying that's hard. I don't think this team is Big 12 contendership whatsoever. Yeah, not at all. KSU Cats have serious team issues. Go Big Red 1. My division while serving the U.S. Army. I appreciate your service. You know, I'm a Navy vet. I wanted this double time. I wanted the Kansas State win, and I wanted it to be Army because I'm a Navy veteran, but it just didn't work out. But I respect the service academies, all of them. I think the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, the whole conversation between Army and Navy and Air Force and those games every year are always fun to watch. The Army-Navy game is such a cool thing that the whole world watches. So, you know, hats off to Army for sticking in this one, playing a tough game, and beating a Power 4 opponent after getting upset by an FCS school in Tarleton State. I mean, that is exactly the type of statement that you want Jeff Monken to do. That what Jeff Monken did, you want Chris Kleiman to be able to do. And it just didn't work out for Kansas State. So everything but props to Army. Everything. All props to Army. They did exactly what they did to do that. Question, is Kleiman realistically fireable? Isn't his contract until 2030, relatively expensive part program? Probably. You're probably right. I actually don't have those numbers in front of me because that's just not a conversation that we've really had, right? I don't have those buyouts in front of me. I know we've had this conversation in the past with Tang, and we've looked into that, and that's a big deal as well when it comes to numbers, his buyout numbers. But there probably is. I'm going to have to look into that. We'll talk about that later this week. Maybe we will bring up that a segment and we can talk about the numbers on that. So check me out later on this week. We'll discuss that. I just don't have those numbers. Overall, I mean, what a game here. I appreciate everybody listening. 145 people watching. That's awesome after this type of game. It's really, it's unfortunate that we get a bigger number because we're all trying to just like have therapy together, right? But that's exactly where we're at. I'm predicting a 5-7 season, at best 6-6 is what it looks like. I mean, look at the rest of the schedule. I mean, if you want to go 5-7 or 6-6, that means the next 2 games must be wins. I mean, you have to. Arizona and UCF, with the exception of Oklahoma State later on in the season, are your 2 easiest teams left on the schedule. So you have a short week now. You got to find out how to get right after Army, which you were just bullied by a service academy. And then you have to get a short week, fly to Arizona, and take on the other Wildcats, and then you have UCF, which if we can get out of those and be 3-2, I mean, I feel a little bit better. Definitely feel okay with 5-7, 6-6 if we get through that, but that's just tough. That's just really tough. The Army offense is a fine-tuned, clock-draining defense killing machine, and that defense has a bend don't break mentality that makes it hard for opposing offenses. They were impressive. But they shouldn't have been impressive. This is a Kansas State team that shouldn't have let them do that. I mean, until that final drive with Avery Johnson and the offense, Kansas State had 4 plays in the second half, 4 offensive plays in the second half, because that Army offense was doing that clock draining defense killing machine, like Greg says. I love that. Shout out, Greg. That was great. You just can't have that. You can't have that whatsoever. You have to, and how do you even say bounce back now? Because that's what I said last week. You have to bounce back for a statement win. Now where do we go? Now where does Kansas State go? Your rest of your schedule is filled with Big 12 opponents. You don't have an FCS school on your books. You don't have a G5 school on your books. It's Arizona as your final non-conference game, which is still a Big 12 opponent. And then the other 8 are all conference games. So if you couldn't make a statement against North Dakota and Army, what are you expecting to do against Arizona, UCF, and then Baylor? That's your next 3. 2 of them are on the road. What are you expecting to do? It's just tough. It's just very tough to make happen. I appreciate all these comments in here. I mean, this is awesome. 7 points is 7 points. Doesn't matter if you take 1 minute, score 10. I don't disagree there, but if Army's going to take 10 minutes to score, then that's taking away the opportunity for, I don't know the context here, but it's taking away the conversation or the opportunity for Avery Johnson, the offense, to get it done. How bad would this season have to be to actually see significant coaching changes? Well, we just brought this up earlier about the potential of actually his buyout, of Chris Kleiman's buyout. I don't know those numbers, and I'll get to those later on this week because I do think that's needs to be talked about now. We talked about it with Jerome Tang when he had his blunders, and I think it's only fair to talk about with Chris Kleiman after losing to a G5 opponent like Army. But, I mean, how significant would it have to be to actually discuss it? Well, I mean, if you don't make a bowl game after putting in this entire type of putting in all your chips into the portal this year, I mean, there was a bunch of chips going into the portal. NIL, I mean, the recruiting was pretty high. This is seen as one of the best recruiting classes in Kansas State's history. Not just talking about Lincoln Cure either, which he's dressed for the last 2 games for the record, and we haven't seen him yet. That just tells me that they want to get him in, but they haven't had the chance to actually do it because Avery Johnson had to play the entire game. So, of course, the rest of the offense had to do it. So you're not going to put your unproven freshman in when you're trying to win a football game. I think if you don't make a bowl game, I think there's big changes at the end of the season. I don't think we see any significant coaching changes during the year unless you lose against Arizona, UCF, Baylor, and Tech. If you lose your next 4 and you're already at 1-6, then I think you do maybe see something really fast. And I think you do see some changes drastically just to try and get ahead of it because of new portal windows and things like that. But if they don't make a bowl game, I think we see some changes regardless of the buyout this coming season. So I appreciate that, Ragnar, for that. Danny boy, how you doing, man? I honestly don't think having Dylan back changes anything with this offense. Shout out, Danny. You always talking to me on the socials and always talking the cast. I really appreciate it. I'm with you. I really just don't know what that does. And, you know, Dylan Edwards is a special talent. And one, I don't think you need to put him on special teams at all for the rest of the season because Nornberg is doing a pretty good job. We didn't get a really good chance to see the punt returns, but I think Sterling Lockett will be just fine. He was fine last week. You leave Dylan Edwards away from special teams. Don't even give him a reason to potentially get hurt on special teams. You need him for offense, and maybe that helps open up the offense. Maybe Matt Wells and Chris Kleiman stop being scared with Avery because they have 2 weapons in the backfield instead of just Avery. Like I'm guessing that's the excuse. That's the reason for why they don't utilize Avery, is because they don't want to have him and Dylan Edwards out. Although it doesn't really matter if you can't win football games. But that's like my weird feeling of like, that's probably what they're thinking about. Not saying they should, but that's just my thought process there. If you agree, let me know as well. But yeah, I think having Dylan doesn't change. And that's mainly because this offensive line can't move anything. This was the perfect chance to show that the offensive line had some grit against the Service Academy. Never big in size, never. I mean, tough, gritty teams always play to the whistle. I said that this entire week. You remember you played Army, even if you win or lose. If you win by 20, people usually go to the press conference and say they feel banged up. They know that these teams play to the whistle, and you don't forget it. Now you're obviously never going to forget it because you got upset by them, but I agree. I don't think having Dylan back changes anything with this offense. Now you have to point at this offensive line, who has been doing a decent job protecting Avery in the passing unit. But when it comes to trying to run the ball and get those 3 yards in a cloud's of dust, or just 3-4 yards of carry to just move the chains and slowly progress this offense instead of going 3 and out against an Army team multiple times this game, you have to change things. And I was really hopeful that this was going to be an okay year for this offensive line. Like, I was slightly worried when Connor Riley got promoted to the Dallas Cowboys. Like, I was kind of looking forward to maybe having him move on as the offensive coordinator. Although maybe I probably should backtrack that. Maybe, I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. But as the offensive line coach, I've known that he's really produced some dogs. He's done that. I was excited for LePeck. I still am excited for LePeck. I think he's an eventual head coach eventually. I think he does a really good job at recruiting. But overall, you got to find a way to get this offensive line moving. Bring in JB Nelson, a guy that was a all Big Ten honorable mention in the past. I mean, he's having time. He's struggling getting off the ball fast enough. Maybe that's why he lost his job in Penn State and had to transfer elsewhere. That's the kind of the conversations that maybe we should be having. George Fitzpatrick hasn't been back yet. We'll see if he can rejuvenate the offensive line, but it might be too late by the time he gets back. So I'm with you. Although I do want Dylan to come back because it's the best chance of us winning, and we are going to be a better offense with him on the field. I don't know if him coming back actually changes the issues on the offense, because I don't think not having him is the reason that this offense isn't succeeding. I thought that initially in week 0 against Iowa State, in that first half especially, before we started looking in the tape, before we started digging into more things, I thought, the fact you just didn't have Dylan Edwards to run against those linebackers against Iowa State, to do some things, to open up the playbook, to do everything you need to, I thought that was the main thing. But for 3 weeks in a row, this offensive line has not got any push, and that's not something a scat back like Dylan Edwards can fix. No doubt in my mind. Shout out Danny for reaching out. Really appreciate that. Luke, you mean it. Yeah, exactly. Dylan can't say bad play calling. I get that 100%. For sure. So, yeah, guys, this is just insane. I really have no idea how to think of how to move forward. Like, what is the right way to think about moving forward after this one? Because you can't look for bounce backs or statement wins now. You have to just get right. You have to just look for a win somehow, some way. With Arizona next, a team that I thought heading into the offseason, their head coach, Brett Brennan, was on the hot seat because of all their defensive woes last year and everybody leaving the portal. Remember, Trey Spivey left and went to the portal, went to Arizona. So we're going to be going against Trey Spivey on Friday. So lots of little small storylines that are going to be in this. We'll see if they can, I want to say, make a statement. You can't do that. Find a win against the Arizona Wildcats, because that's the best chances that they have to keep this season alive. Again, huge overreaction on tonight's show. There's no doubt about that. But the problem with this team is the defense, says JB. I think there's a lot of problems. I think you could say all 3 facets of the football are the problem with this team. I really do. I don't think there is one. I don't think you can point at one thing right now. And that's the biggest problem. That's why you lost this one to the Army Black Knights. And again, no disrespect to them, just like when I was talking about North Dakota last week. No disrespect to them either. But we should be playing at a different level than only beating or losing to these teams by 3 points. It just shouldn't be at that point. So we have a short week coming up. We're going to obviously have a reaction show on Sunday talking about the presser that's happening right now. I didn't want to wait for it. I want to get your initial reactions and have a therapy session with all of you. And I really appreciate that. And then we'll have a short week and we'll dive right in. We'll look right towards Arizona, look to get a win, and hopefully move back to 2-2. Statistically, this season is still alive. And statistically, it will be no matter what after the game on Friday against Arizona because it's non-conference. But they have to find a way to build confidence. They have to find a way to get Avery Johnson the football and make him run the ball more. Hopefully, you can get hopefully get Dylan Edwards back so you can get one game under his belt to get behind him before you actually go into true Big 12 play yet again this season. Because the only hope of this team making a college football playoffs, if that's still the goal, is winning the Big 12 championship, period. Can't even just go. You got to go to Arlington. You got to win it. It's got to be 2022 for this team. It has to be. It has to happen. I don't know how anyone can say the problem of this is a defense. The offense only scored 13 in the first half. We're not good on offense either. No, I agree. Like I said, all three facets. But I think the defense is easily one of the issues as well. There's no doubt. And you can say it's because they were gassed. Well, they can't be gassed then. Conditioning needs to step up. And hopefully that's all they do that 1 week off after the Arizona game is work on conditioning. If this is what this team's going to be, where they have to rely on this defense to step up, that they have to rely on the secondary to step up, which they haven't over the last couple of weeks, then they need to find a way to do it. Army just ran and passed all over you. That's a big problem. All right, we'll be back here tomorrow with an episode. We'll dive into the pressers. We'll do so much more. I appreciate everybody's comments here. This is awesome. This was great. Keep the comments coming if you're listening after the live stream. If you're listening on audio, you can hit me up on Twitter at LockedOnKState. We're going to be bringing content every single day, as we always do on the show. If you're listening right now and you are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button so we can continue to bring on Wildcat coverage every single day like no one else. All right, folks, please like the video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you back here next time on Locked On Kansas State.